have some time for questions, and so our Bodhisattva student Sean will be passing around the microphone. It's a little tricky, so hopefully the microphone will work. We can start with you.
My question is this: how about to cut down the living tree? Living tree.
Can you living tree?
Living tree.
Oh.
Like why I ask this question is that in Taiwan, Mount Ali, they have one old tree being cut down, and then something come out, so like red color juice. So people consider that it have some kind of life.
What about cutting down trees? Kare gongi do, shugi
ta khang do sokcha jiwondo huirna ta rikshit pi chulu kartsang ngezikindi shepchak bazir kona rikshit pi chulu ta khongsu dari chulu kwando shenena huirna shangyang dari khchanyang maris devjin dana to sawo do yotti huirna dari gandi chi gyakyo zikenda to lapag zero 대초 있나요? 다리가 사고는 야라 장에 있는 나때 다리가 드화요너리 그거 샹 대초요는 다리가 책쪽요너리 던다세요래. 되는 아주 나와 상기 비추 원도시나 시집 지 향자긴 대초요 rap도 쇼하고 게르농을 돈바가나나 대입가요래. 샹 다리가 먹지게 당나 대진더 짜탕 상마다 척상마라 샹치문도르겨 다티모고 다리가 요언제 이나 샹치 생화가 짜비 돈바 냠교거저거나 대 다리가 된다송 말에 치레제나 형대 초라 책종 찬이바요 말에 청대라 다리가 뭐책이 샘친거 책종나다 찬이바 차당 담바요 말에 대니나 대좀 말에제 되니 당선대 코리 종축 공원도 신이나 당아츠 오니 지금 사차 소소소소 그 작 대소식 되니 항대 소챗 대전도는 흑들인데 소르몽도 시기잔지기나 다 머럽시마 그거 나츠 그 다샤차 버기고 다리 머럽시마 탐지다요 되니 다 통콩지형 매배 우르지 통콩지형 매바가 인정조제 대니나 그 머리리진데요 나츠 코리그 종점다 하작가르치오래 당에 때나 아메리카다 대초이나 샹차르니나 첨거다는 디모근 조건과 다 하장 영어래 삼고요. 되니 사차 잔다는 제르크 잔소나 다른 때 지스타전도 럭터 용거만도 담 럼지 치도도 첨거고 되니 항막적이다. 아니시 다 추거고 거든 시기나 되니 다리는 코리긴도 지종 지들 담바스도 kirkire 삼기요.
I mentioned in my speech about the Jain, the Vedic tradition of Jain. And according to their tradition, for example, they're not allowed to cut down trees. They're not allowed to harvest root vegetables such as turnips and so forth because they grow underground and that will disturb the creatures that live there. This is all considered to be non-virtue. And so they're very, very careful about not taking the serious approach towards this vow of never harming a single living creature, taking it to the extreme. In Buddhism, for the monastics, the monks and the nuns, the cutting down of trees is prohibited, and also even cutting grass. So a monastic is not allowed to do this. But if we were to ask in terms of lay people who have the Bodhisattva vow, as we do, if we cut down a tree or cut the grass, do we lose our root vow? We do not. And the reason is because the tree is actually inanimate. It is not a sentient being. And so there's that point. And then yet there's still the consideration of the environment. Harming the environment is not positive, it's negative. And that has ramifications that are actually going to affect the lives of living beings, and especially the future generations. And so to be careless and to disturb the environment in such a way that there's no source for those aspects of the environment to grow in a natural way thereafter, then this is negative. And in fact, in many countries, you will break the law if you cut down a tree, and you can be put in jail. And so that would have to be taken into consideration. So the fact that it is illegal makes it negative. The fact that it impacts the environment adversely makes it negative. And if there are other spiritual reasons beyond that, it would also be negative. But as I said, for the Bodhisattva training, it's not considered to be a breach.
Other questions?
Hi, thank you very much for the speech. I wanted to ask you about ethical living in a world in which so much of the harm that we do is not done directly by us, it's done by the products we purchase, like the clothing industry, the meat industry. People support things indirectly, we're not seeing the actual consequences of what they're doing. And then I wanted to ask if you could speak about Kali Yuga as well. Thank you.
나좀 담랑게 땅아 단데 담랑게 땅아 매 참아가 소화로 땅데 권지의 쇼크되나 소화 말지의 쇼크되나 참아 논체 면도 문득이 참아 신노긴 직드는 높아 나직 선전 높아 면서 문득이 근데 네가 티 이거마세요 이거만 압도되면 돈 이거마세요 근데 회원들 해서
Karagongidu Rikwa.
돈 이거마세요 근데 지속으로 돈 제가 도와 가는 거
네. 그러나 추구나 되네 다리가 티기 님만생 느껴도 되네 지금 나타나 먹기 되네 잔치 지금 잠잠 모여오네 띵안바 랑숑은 지바 모여오나 다 티몬스가 다세건지 되네 치 님만생기도 다 못함식 체로 그러나 나만 먹어 체로고 야로 야랬나 당선 직접 던치고 맞답죠. 팀냥 체닉 맞아요. 근데 스타위 닝마즈기는 담뭐 남바수 지금 양덕 공쇼고 스타와이나 때다리 무바메네. 근데 신줄로 런글 리심 그 대탕라 노파요 노텔라 무바요 노 팀냥 스타와 닝마즈이단 다 티몬세고인지 때이네나 다 지금 추세긴데 체르들 거로 지금 잠복런글 자마자네 나자가 콤바 코네 나자가 시킵 거논세 찌응 메바즈게 코네나 무수 나추고 나나브제오네레 강다 강이 나라는 셈친 어제나 노파케지리 요건데 덴디 테카모레세 예나요 나춘 소완다 노파 침보도 만제라스 참에 다리 존는 시진도 하정 다리 까침보레스 치레제나 호일나 장문이나 장모티 목사기 오래다나 양 쳇던 목사기다나 쳇도 다리가 너네 다 셈청 장가 다리가 쭉쭉이다나 머리가 장가 다리가 쭉쭉이 근데서 주 쓰다 많던바 추당 많던바즈 대연 건데스 대연나 추원도시나 마고시 셈청 장라 득바 그지 쉬나라 니바 침보 메스 고진 시전的等于这个会拿个一给他做家的，他听着做人呢，他这个对吧？全部有个这个人，对人呢就我从错案的就怎么的呢？错案的短当担保，让他判比错案样的把解决的，长面做那些这样子呢等于那么跟的就长嘛的感觉有几个都结果呢，干么的？참아 간전 추기르고나 까모레다 야 강라 강섬 그런 남자가 그 잠몰랑도 기란조 나야로 초코레 상고요.
Yeah, on your question about Kali Yuga, that means in English that means the degenerate times, and that means a time when humanity is struggling with incurable disease, with famine, and with strife. And in many ways it becomes more and more irrepressible. And so that causes more terror, anxiety, and paranoia to arise in the minds of beings, and everything goes into a state of degeneracy. That would be the general condition, and it also affects the life expectancy, which declines from where it had been at 100 years down to 60 or 70 years. The degeneracy of the view means most beings are no longer inclined to accept a perfectly correct view of truth, have no respect for that, are looking for a more watered down version, and will actually engage in activities that harm their body and their mind and label that a spiritual path. And so this is the degeneracy of the view. And so degenerate times, yes, we are in those times. And as a byproduct of that, as you also mentioned, phenomenally, many of the things that we're dependent upon in our environment have come about based upon negativity. Even the food we eat, the clothing that we wear, this is also very true. But it's very important that we still try not to directly engage in such a way that it causes harm that we are aware of. And at the same time, we can be aware that we have to make use of these things because that may be all that's available to us, but we can try our best to be more mindful. Because in Buddhism, it's taught that everything is about your intention. And so if you do something unintentionally or unknowingly, then that's different from intentionally intending to harm. There is a difference karmically. So that is one key. But otherwise, it's very difficult to try to have a perfectly clean lifestyle that is also meaningful and beneficial to all other beings. To be perfect in that way, that's extremely hard. But so to cover all the bases, that may be difficult. But from my point of view, it is possible. And more we human beings have to think in these ways and to try to cover the bases, and that will make our planet a better place for the future.
There's a question over here. Yeah.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. My question is, in following the Bodhisattva path, is part of the teachings to have compassion for yourself, because in the pursuit to not leave any living creature behind and to care for others, it could be overwhelming because there are so many needs and so many people who need help in the world. So how do you balance both interests to care for yourself and also care for others?
Matsun jisting gawanda shina ya huirna girgun tani loma tsama la sanlong tangken sina tam malala nana tendra yora tani loma tsama la sanlong tang ma tang korung ton la sanlong ma tang yor yon jidana the jandun the ina yang korung ji huirna choa zama dana te jin da la po dana timot ji rangshi gen jong ji to ji chuni de zikiro the 지금 랑시가 다리 춘이 저거라 지 다리 공부랑 다리 그 춘이들서 그처럼죠. 대동 자와장 그 샹추선 화냥톱단 담바고 드네잔 로아심전 탐치고 동 코나 라삼고 동 니잔제나 릉거 동거 왜나 릉거기다 드네 롱당 똑바 만나 다리 그 드네 방스톡고 용다 방와당 똑바고 용던 때도 소탐쳤다 드네 바드메 시김종화 송원제 회나 니 메야라 포르네나 테네 타다리 시크 용라 니 포르네나 타다리 시금 종용화 비전다나 테네 잔돈 드피칸스라 다가 란돈도 조라 다가 종용조도 송원제 데인디 샹추 생활텔라양 르 넘버 스미온제 르 치드 치레제나 회나 르조다나 대진다나 다가 다르조르 타와제이다나 셈진 하르흥나 데데 다가 랑 자가 하르 용노 르조르타비 셈키타나 대신도 냠바타비 셈키제 랑다 셈치니가 냠도 저스자메 회나 쯔그는 그 요거는 따바다나 대신도는 르갸로르타비 셈키제 랑 흥나 상기가 꼼한토데나 아잔 셈친 다가 저스삼주 그 남바만자와 쓰몬데 남바만자와 쓰는 거는 그 쏘다리가 샘지 야라 프로듀션 받 저어다 생기 그러나 샘친 다리가 야란 제네다나 또 코상지 삼주 티 삼받 자호르 존나 기라 자호르 양 따바다나 사인 형을 따바 인제 사인 형은 도그나나 사인 형은 도그나나 샘친 마르통 와르드나 다니 상디야 마샤고 샘친 코라 똥 마송 와르도 코 상마르디야 저래 샘친 마르통 와르드나 다니 상디야 마샤고 대송원제다 된다가즈기나 대 나르키 프로듀션 바이언 이나 사인 형은 그 자마다나 사인 형은 그 라포다나 가서깔래 요그 말을
Yes, from the point of view of the world, I'll address that. If a teacher is only thinking about his or her students and not caring about himself, herself, then we believe that if there is this level of concern for others, where there's no self-concern, it's believed that the health of the teacher and the abundance or the circumstances for happiness or well-being of that teacher are going to come about as a matter of course. In other words, their life is going to be taken care of. They will be just fine, to put it simply. And on the path of training to become a bodhisattva, it is definitely believed, and it is true, that if you only think about others, then all of the qualities on the path of Dharma will be yours. All of the abandonments will occur, and all of the stages of higher realization will be cultivated effortlessly. That's how profound this practice is. If you can give up self and dedicate to others. So it has to be for real. And so it's just as real as if a fire burns, what remains are the ashes. That means that if you dedicate yourself to the welfare of others, you will be completely taken care of in the best way possible. Now, in cultivating the bodhicitta, there are the three examples or metaphors which relate to the three stages of the attitude. One is to cultivate like a shepherd, one is to cultivate like a captain, and one is to cultivate like a king. And so actually the main of these three, the main metaphor is to cultivate like the shepherd, who cares about the sheep more than himself, and once they are comfortable and safe, then that's really all that matters. And so this is how the cultivation of the bodhicitta should take place. And in terms of that, there is one bodhisattva called the essence of earth, or Bodhisattva Sodargye. And he made the commitment until all beings are freed from this ocean of existence. In other words, until this ocean of existence is empty, I vow to not awaken. And so, do you think that the Bodhisattva Sodargye was still hungry and cold? Did he have any personal needs? No.
We have time for one more question.
At the beginning of the talk, you mentioned how this practice is really compatible with other faiths and other traditions, and how you want to, in this practice, be really compassionate towards those other traditions as well. My question is, how can you then offer guidance or maybe a new practice such as vegetarianism, which might be very foreign to other or cultures, without seeming as though you're telling them that they're doing something wrong? How can you share the ideas of Buddhism with people of other faiths and traditions in a way that they'll be received and followed in a kind of an unaggressive way?
Deri Khenpo gi chutri gozuktu teni shen gi chuluk dan tumbo yongore dan risungsong. And danda di shama zaya de ditsukorla mishenda la lapgona kandre tapshi kepa lapgore. Karianzena samsampe urtsuk zapo dende dabo samgidua sosotawa da shamazana yapomindu shazana yapomindu dendre zegona konso ngorgorchegi de gagi omare Etapshi kande lapgona.
Ta the kasang terang dirabndo 그 영어다나 심 야침보 tani koha sara chi yongo timo yinre chi koba sara tari chi yachiwo ta timo dirabsaga to yore ta timo dirabsaga to yoti rana susu na taga chuwe na chamta mombo se yore jikten ga kamna yana tawa tari manjawa mo yona hoi na chamsang zasang chiga yana zasang chig tani taga perpendana pama cheke tari tawa manjawa mo yore yonre daya rangir tatsir de parorwa namna parorwa tema thada tene ta tsga zanjona ta margawa namjir tinge tena stongi mare sanga garte stonna ya tare parorwa chonzre xod ngatsu shatyo de la nilgi yomeda sam tan konre garte namba chamta jamba zo khosu onil mekasane na korazo onil me pate tari onil yopi shawa de jenne na haj yahore 이나야 무슨 상말라 때 고그지 니버장거 지 캬적시기도 아무게리오바 된저 연게요 말에 강 따리요나 다 회나마 책이 오바 속에나 되네 판선 쏘바이다나 더 덴돈 덴비 돈된 소리 쳤다나 되네 졸라에 기다나 쏘바조기다나 대신에 까차샤기 된저 뭔보요라 된저 뭔보요디 탐케고 쇼바글 고가 잠바조 땅도 라나야 저래 가테 땅도 말란지나야 pena jamba ga tram tha ga na yang chi nga chu yang chi sema man jo chi ta na tang de le ma thol che mo bo yo re ta yin jikten de ndra man ra zin re ko na me tok te la ta ri kha tok na nga yo na jikten de tene ha jang ya bo zi ra me tok kha chang ma de kha tok chi yin jo na tene jikten zigdig dam ba za kir ko na ka mo yin re te dang ra wa jang ta ta namang zombie kha sa de ra na namang zombie rig ni ze go do 나가 몸본 좀 비르니 땡자윈 직텐스래 땡자윈 직텐도 되네 스타와 먼저 몸보요나 출 잠바츠이나 콩나바가 지 되네 그냥 다리가 시지리 산딩가랑 라다리가 예체요 강 다리가 까테 땅도 말랑잖아요 대 다리가 저래 맞수 랑랑 수수라 그 랑기 내리양 답반 소리게 싫어요나 저게 요너래 대인디 소대 지 랑다 잔나 지 등근을 매 박을 거고 샤워 접견도 하장 가르치오래.
These days it's very important to be open-minded, and that seems to be the direction that this world is going in and needs to go in. And the reason is because there are many different spiritual beliefs, and there are many different cultures and traditions that need to learn how to live together on the planet harmoniously. And even just in our own life and according to our own domain of experience, let's say within a family, parents and kids have conflicting views and orientations. And so there has to be give and take in order for the family to get along, right? And so when we think about that, we should never say anything that's going to be offensive to someone else that we're saying it to. What's the point of that? How is that ever going to help? And we should never say something that's going to make someone else angry or aggressive. And so we have to think carefully about if we're going to present the notion of, let's say, vegetarianism in this case, or the Buddhist view that's been presented to you this evening, that if this is something you think is going to be sensible to the person that you're speaking to, well, then that's great. If they can make sense out of it, if they're open to it, if they're asking for it, then it's skillful to share it with them. If that's not the case, you may be forcing it upon them, and that's not going to be skillful or have a wanted result. And so whoever can understand things in an open way and in a truthful way would be someone that you can share with like this. And it may, take some discernment to figure out who those people may be. In our tradition, we get into a lot of debate, philosophical debate and reasoning in order to clarify and find what is true for us. And so many of our doubts are uprooted in this way, and we finally decide on things that make sense because they're truth tested. But there are many who may not be doing this, and so we have to, carefully approach. For example, in this world, there are many flowers, and the flowers are composed of many different colors, and they're all beautiful, right? Flowers don't have to be the same flower, and they don't have to be the same color. That's the world that we live in. There are many cultures, there are many views, and just as we don't believe in many of the views of other religions, we may be completely against that view. Well, likewise, they may be completely against our view. So we have to find a common ground and respect that. And it would be ideal to find what is really true and to share that truth with one another because it makes sense to each one of you. And so it's very important to make sure that when you're speaking to others and presenting your view, that it's something that's going to be able to fit into their mind and into their belief system and to be skillful.
Khenpo Rinpoche, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom, and we wish you well on your next journey. Thank you so much for coming.